Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I want to let you know that at the end of this sermon, we are going to be taking communion together. So if you want to prepare right now, it's okay to walk away and get whatever you need to take communion with us at the end of this. Well, when I was a new mom, I got so much advice. Any of you out there ever get a ton of advice? Some of it was good, and some of it, well, not really, not so much. It was, let's just say, less than useful. One example: sleep when the baby sleeps. That's what they tell you. But really? Sleep when the baby sleeps? I mean, that's awesome because babies sleep a lot. But can I also clean the house when the baby cleans the house and cook dinner when the baby cooks dinner? It turns out that you can't really sleep when the baby sleeps. It's not very good advice. Um, Lots of advice that we are given just doesn't really work. Here's another example for new parents. Um, Buy a wipes warmer. That was a cool new thing when my kids were growing up, but really? A wipes warmer? Really? I don't know if that's a good place to spend your money. Um, Advice is only good as long as it works and it makes your life better because you use it. So I'm guessing all of us have received at some point some really bad advice, whether that was parenting advice, relationship advice, or even financial advice. In this short series, we are talking about the advice that money might give us if money talked. And it turns out that money would give us the same advice, and what it says would match what Jesus did say when Jesus talked about money. And if there's anyone that we can trust to give us good advice, then that's Jesus. So to recap, for those who might not have been here last week, we learned the first two things that money would say if money talked. And the first one was this: I can add meaning to your life, but I'm not the meaning of life. And the second one was similar in it said this: the moment you think you own me, I really own you. And I sent you home last Sunday with a piece of homework to do. I sent you home with an assignment to spy on your money. Spy on your money. Find out where your money is going because, as we found out last week, your money is not really your money. It really is God's money because we are just managers, not owners of that money. So I hope that you spied on your money this week so that you know where you are sending it and where you are spending it. And the reality is this: most of us send our money and spend our money in the same ways. It's a script that we've been handed. We spend a bunch of it, we repay debt, which really is just because we already spent it, and we save a little bit. And then, if there's anything left over and someone asks, then we give a little bit of what is left over. If I don't spend it all, then God and others get what's left over. It's me first living with a little leftover giving. And this is a script that we've all inherited. This is kind of the pattern that has been set for us. It's what most everyone does. And so you're in good company, except that Jesus flipped the script. Matthew 6, verse 21 says this: For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. In other words, where our money goes is what gets our attention. Whatever gets our money gets our heart. Let's take an example. If you've ever owned a new car or a new to you car, you probably spent a pretty penny on that vehicle. Whether it was brand new or not, didn't matter. If you spent your money on this vehicle, you spent a bit more time and care making sure that it was clean, that it was all up to specs, that you took the best possible care you could of that new investment. And that was because whatever gets our money gets our attention. Our money takes a little piece of our heart wherever it goes. And this is true of all of us. See, whether or not we are followers of Jesus, if you're here and you aren't sure if you believe or you're sure that you don't, one of the things you can be sure of is that you can belong here before you believe. And the advice that Jesus and our money would give us if money could talk is effective, even if you aren't a Jesus follower. But I know a lot of you. A lot of you are Jesus followers. I know that you have dedicated your lives to Him and you're trying to do the things the way that He would want you to do. And that's why you're here. That's why you're listening. Here's the thing: Jesus is not after your money, He's after your heart. That's what matters most to Him. And what He says is this: what you do with your money is an indicator of where your heart is. That's how you know who and whose you really are. It's where the rubber meets the road. And this is the ultimate litmus test for our devotion to God. It's what we do with our money. And that brings us to the third thing that our money would say if money talked. Our money might tell us this: my direction reveals your affection. My direction reveals your affection. Well, right about now, you might be wondering if the church is in a financial crisis. If I'm about to virtually pass the plate and give you a reason that you should be giving to the church and just empty out your pocketbook. But I'm sorry if this disappoints you, but I'm not going to do that. The church isn't in a financial crisis. The reason for this sermon series is not that we want your money. The reason for this sermon series is that what we do with our money, it demonstrates the depth of our discipleship. It demonstrates the depth of our discipleship. And together, you and I and everyone here, we are helping one another to grow in being better followers of Jesus. And that's why we're talking about money in church, because our money's direction reveals our affection. And in all honesty, most of us spend and send our money in ways that are pretty selfish. That's just the way it is. And Jesus calls us to reprioritize, to flip the script. Don't worry, I'm not going to suggest that you give it all away. That would just be irresponsible, right? I mean, ultimately, if you give everything away, that would make you a burden on other people. And that's not what I am suggesting at all. That's not what our money would tell us if money could talk. Giving all our money away would be irresponsible, but spending all of it on ourselves would also be irresponsible, especially in light of the fact that our money isn't ours. Our money wouldn't want us to swing back and forth between these two extremes either. That also doesn't fit with what our money would say if money could talk. In the end, it's really not about your money at all. It's really about your heart. Jesus says it like this in Matthew 6:33. But seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Well, let's look at this verse in two parts. First, it says, and Jesus says, that we should put first His kingdom and His righteousness. Well, now, those are very churchy words. They're unusual words, kingdom and righteousness. not really words that we use in our everyday language, but basically what what Jesus is saying here is that God's kingdom is an others first kingdom. An others first kingdom. What's right is what's right for others. What's best is what's best for others. So Jesus would have us flip the script on where we send and spend our money. And this is because Jesus is inviting us into a kingdom, into a world where we don't go first. In this kingdom, where we don't go first, we find more peace, more joy, more purpose, more meaning, and more financial margin. The second part of Matthew 6:33 says, all these things will be added to you as well. So it's not others only and not you. It's just that others go first. It's about priorities. It's not either or, it's both and it's about which one comes first. So if our money could talk, our money might suggest a different order of sending and spending. It might look more like this: give first, save second, and live on what's left over. Or more simply, give, save, live. Give, save, live, in that order. And here's a tip: when you think about giving, it's not the amount that matters. Think more about a percent. Now, I'm not going to tell you what percent. I know you're just waiting for me to give you an exact amount so you can say this is the exact amount. But God doesn't tell us that. You know what he does? He gives us an amount of money that comes in every month, and he says, it is your responsibility to manage this money. So you are the manager of the money that God has entrusted to you. And so you are the person to decide how you're going to send it and spend it. You choose the percent you will give. Choose and then do it. Then pick a percent to save. Pick a percent to save. And that is really so that you don't become dependent on other people. And then once you've given and saved, live on the rest. Live it up. You can send and spend that money however you wish. You can upgrade, buy newer, nicer, whatever it is that you want to do with the money that is left over. Here's the secret to guarding against greed, against the assumption that it's all for your consumption. The way to ensure that you have your money and your money doesn't have you. And it turns out that this is also a secret to making your finances inflation proof and recession proof. Give, save, live, in that order. Flip the script. It's going to impact every area of your life and those around you. And if you're like me, when you've done this for a little while, you'll notice that something else is different. You're different. So the third thing that our money might say, if money could talk, is my direction reveals your affection. The last thing that our money might say, if money talked, is a big question that I want to leave you with at the end today. Jesus sets it up in Luke 12, verses 15 through 20. He starts where we started last week with the definition of greed, the consumption assumption, and he builds from there. In verse 15, it says, "Then he said to them, 'Watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions.' And he told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, 'What shall I do? I have no place to store my crops.' Then he said, This is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and I'll build bigger ones. And there I will store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy. Eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? Well, this parable is about a rich guy with extra money. On the surface, it seems like we have nothing in common with this guy. Who has extra money, right? But if you ever tried to put something extra into a closet or a shed and there wasn't space for it because it was already full of all the other extra things that you have you ever rented a storage space for the extra things that wouldn't even fit in your house? We have more in common with this guy than you would think that we do. This rich guy has a great plan. It's a plan that many of us also have. Have an easy life. That's his plan. Have an easy life. But what does God say to him? He says, you fool. Do you see the disconnect? He's out of time before he runs out of money. And here's a question. When you are out of time, who will get your money? And I'll tell you the answer because it's the same for everyone. When you're out of time, someone else will get your money. And if you've used it and kept it all for yourself, it will be a complete loss. Luke 12:21 shows how complete a loss it will be. Jesus says, this is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich toward God. Now, Jesus is not teaching against preparing for the future here. He's teaching that this is how it will be for anyone who only prepares for their own future and is not rich toward God. For anyone who embraces the consumption assumption that everything I get is for me, because that's the mistake. Remember, money says I can add meaning to your life, but I'm not the meaning of life. And the rich man in this parable made a key mistake. He thought that his money was a gift instead of a tool. Which leads me to the big question. The last thing that money might say if money talked, and here it is. To what ends do you want your life to be a means? To what ends do you want your life to be a means? Well, the answer to that question has a lot to do with how you're going to use your money. If something is not the means to an end, it has no meaning. The rich man's life had no meaning. It was a total loss. So to what ends do you want your life to be a means? In other words, what do you want other people to celebrate about you when you're gone? What do you want people to line up and thank you for? Most people don't stop and ask those questions. They just let life happen to them, and life sort of figures that out for them. And usually it's not what they would have wanted if they had stopped to consider and answer this question. Because the culture will pull you to she ate, she drank, she was merry, and she died. Nobody chooses that on purpose. When we choose on purpose to give, save, live, we can choose the ends to which we want our life to be a means. If you want to change where your heart is, you just change where your money goes. So let's dig into the details of that a little bit. It might not be what you expect. See, when you decide where to give. My suggestion is that you give both from a grateful heart and from a broken heart. First, choose an organization that you are grateful for. Maybe the church, maybe it's a school, maybe it's a community organization that was there for you in your time of need, or one that would have been there if it had existed when you had your need. This is your chance to pay back what you have been given. This is your chance to give back. When I was a child, my father died. I was 7 years old, and it was the church that showed up for our family. They prayed for us. They helped us with material needs. They were generous and cared for my family. And so for me, the church is where I want to give back because they were there for me. Second, choose an organization that supports a cause that breaks your heart. It might be an organization that's involved in medical research or in mental health issues, or maybe it's something overseas. I don't know what that is. Only you know what that is that breaks your heart. It's something specific to you. This is your chance to pay it forward. One of the causes that breaks my heart is childhood hunger. It is surprising to me, and it might be surprising to you, how many children are here right around the corner in our own neighborhoods where they don't know where they are going to get their next meal. I know some of these kids, and this is a problem that just breaks my heart. How can I be right here on this corner with a pantry full of food when there are kids on this corner that don't know where they're going to get food? And so, to tackle this problem, Grace Kids is going to be partnering with Feed New Mexico Kids. We're going to begin making snack packs. This we take these to a neighborhood school every week. We pack them on Thursday, we take them to the school on Friday, and they distribute them to children who otherwise wouldn't have food over the weekend because the only food they get is at school. And it's going to take about $500 a month in order to feed these kids at that school. And we're starting next week, and that's a cause that breaks my heart. And if it's a cause that breaks yours, then you're welcome to join in with me. But that's where I want to pay it forward. Regardless of what organization you choose, this is the key. Do it. Decide ahead of time that you're going to give a percent of your income and then write that check every month. I mean, if you don't write checks, then figure out a way that works for you to automate your giving so that every month, at the same time, every month, someone in that organization will see that giving come in and know that they can depend on what you are giving. Send it where you've decided ahead of time to send it, and send it when you've decided to give it. And giving like this might seem crazy. It might seem crazy, and maybe it is, but it's a better version of crazy than spending everything you get on yourself. Crazy is living as if your life consisted in possessions, in the accumulation of stuff and of wealth. Crazy is leaving your kids a bunch of stuff that they're going to sell or give away anyway. So, again, to what ends do you want your life to be a means? You should know your answer to that question before you spend yourself into a position where you can't address the things that matter most to you. You'll settle for me first living with a little leftover giving, and that would be a waste. And Jesus says it would be a total loss. Because in the end, all you'll have to show for yourself is yourself. But when you identify and embrace your answer to this big question, your money will follow. And if you answer the question, to what ends do you want your life to be a means, you'll begin to see your money and everything you own as a tool to add meaning to your life and add meaning to the lives of others. And if money could talk, it would say the same things that Jesus did say. It would be better to get advice from someone who knows something about this big part of our lives called money. So let's listen to Jesus and listen to our money. If money could talk, money would say, I can add meaning to your life, but I'm not the meaning of life. The moment that you think you own me, I actually own you. My direction reveals your affection. And finally, if money could talk, it would ask each one of us, to what ends do you want your life to be a means? So I hope that you'll live like a manager and not an owner. I hope that you will give, save, and live in that order. And I hope you'll discover the peace and the purpose that Jesus talked about when Jesus talked about money. It might seem strange that Jesus, who didn't have much money in his earthly life, would give such helpful advice about giving and sending and spending. But his whole life was about being sent from the Father, spending his life to benefit others, and ultimately in giving his life for us. Jesus gave his life to pay a debt that we could not ever pay. And his death is a means, the means by which we come into a right relationship with God. He gave, he saved. And because he lives, we live. He is the expert on how to give, save, and live. And because of that, he is the master. Not only the master of our money, but the master of our hearts. And today, as we remember the costly gift that he gave, we remember that through communion. In communion, we remember those of us who have put our faith in Jesus. We remember him through these two symbols, the bread and the cup. The bread is a symbol of Jesus' body, and the cup is a symbol of his blood. And we take these together as a community, remembering that his gift is not just for us alone, but for all of us and anyone who would believe. That it is only by his sacrifice that we are made right with God. And we take these elements together, you and me, because we are celebrating his generosity and his grace that is shown to us. And we remind ourselves once again to be his representatives in this world through the generosity and the grace that we can overflow to others. On the night that he was betrayed, Jesus took the bread and he broke it and he said, "This is my body that is broken for you. Let's eat it together in remembrance of him." Again, after supper, on the night that he was betrayed, Jesus took the cup and he said, "This is the new covenant in my blood. Do this whenever you do it in remembrance of me." Let's drink it together as we remember him. Let's pray. Father, I thank you that you sent Jesus to be the person who took our place, that you You sent him out of your abundant grace, your generosity towards us. Thank you. Thank you for your generosity towards us. Father, I pray that you would help us as we are trying to be good managers of the money that you've entrusted to us. Help us to use that money as a means to do the things that you've called us to do. Father, I pray for each person who's considering the question of what they should be doing with their lives. Father, I pray that you would help us. Help us to know how we can invest what you have given us in loving you and loving others. Thank you, Father, for giving us the means to do that. We trust you with the future. We trust you with our lives. We trust you with our hearts. And we trust you with our money. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. We'll see you guys next week.